What a Jameis Winston-led New Orleans Saints offense looks like with a full offseason to prepare, and our Friday In Case You Missed It segments get you caught up on a very busy week for the New Orleans Saints. All of that on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome in to the final episode of this week's set of Locked On Saints, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And don't forget, whether you're here listening on your favorite podcast provider or watching on YouTube, thank you very much for tuning in. And don't forget that we're here with you every single Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, covering your New Orleans Saints. On today's episode, yesterday, we talked about what a Taysom Hill-led New Orleans Saints offense would look like with a full offseason. Today, let's dive into a Jameis Winston-led offense and what is necessary for 2021 success. Then, in segments 2 and 3, we have a very busy week for the New Orleans Saints to catch up on. So, it's In Case You Missed It, here to get you caught up on everything throughout the week with your New Orleans Saints. As always, I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on Twitter, your co-managing editor over at CanalStreetChronicles.com, and Tuesday co-host over at the National Locked On NFL podcast. We got all that and a little bit of lanyap for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints, your team every day. And of course, as always, we're here to get you caught up on everything with your New Orleans Saints. So we'll get to our In Case You Missed It segment here in just a moment. We're going to start off with Jameis Winston and what a Jameis Winston-led offense needs to be successful in 2021. Before we get to that, I want to remind you about the Peacock and Williamson NFL show, which you can find on any of your favorite podcast providers to get caught up on everything around the NFL. So let's kick this one off here. Here's the way that I look at it. Jameis Winston could lead an offense for New Orleans that is explosive, yet reserved. And I think that may be the most successful mantra for the way to look at what a Jameis Winston-led New Orleans Saints offense needs to be successful. Let's dive in a little bit deeper. Now, everybody wants to see the big, deep shots when it comes to Jameis Winston, and I can't blame anyone for that. We talked earlier this week about how Traquan Smith may be ready to step into that deep field-stretching role, but I tend to think that you might see a little bit more of a majority conservative approach as at least the season begins if Jameis Winston is the quarterback. I think you can have a little bit more freedom with Taysom Hill right away because Taysom Hill can extend plays. He does all these other things that Sean Payton's already familiar with. There are still a lot of questions for Jameis Winston to answer. Decision-making, of course, being at the top of the list. Did the LASIK eye surgery help with any vision things? So there's still a lot of questions when it comes to Jameis. So I would expect to see a majority conservative approach at the beginning of the season, but it could remain throughout the remainder of the season as well with Jameis Winston. So look, here's the idea, right? Jameis Winston's big thing is, can he take what he learned from Drew Brees and translate it out onto the field, making the right play as opposed to making the big play? That's a big part of what he talked about he picked up from Drew Brees, and making smart plays is going to be sort of the biggest test of Jameis Winston's, let's say, decision-making issues that he's struggled with in the past. You look at the New Orleans Saints from 2016 to 2020, this is a team that has been sort of antithetical to the idea of what a Jameis Winston represents, right? Jameis Winston is mostly known for his turnovers, right? 80 some odd, 89, I believe, interceptions over the course of his 5 years in Tampa Bay. And then in addition to that, 50 fumbles. Turnovers are a bit of a concern, obviously, when it comes to Jameis, but they haven't been a concern for the New Orleans Saints, who have only thrown 44 interceptions over the last 5 years. That's from 2006 through 2020. That's good for the third fewest in the NFL. And during that time, they held a record of 56-24. That includes a 7-9 season in 2016. However, if you look at Drew Brees' first 5 seasons and you look at what's going on there from 2006 to 2010, that was 83 interceptions in Drew Brees' first 5 seasons with the New Orleans Saints, tied for 10th most in the NFL during that span. But the Saints still had a 49-31 combined record over the course of those 5 seasons. So they can win with turnovers, even though it is a little bit, I would say, antithetical to their most recent, let's say, identity, right? The way that they really look at turnovers. And Sean Payton, of course, has a very short leash, or puts a very short leash on those that do turn the ball over. Now, you'll expect to see some big time targets on the outside when it comes to Jameis Winston. Before the 2019 season, between 2015 and 2019, while he was in the NFL, he ended up throwing to the outside receiver, or targeting the outside receiver, 43.1% of the time, second most in the NFL. Even if you look at it from 2009 to 2019, he tops all of those all the way up to the second place spot. So if the downfield targets end up getting reduced to those outside receivers, he had 99 downfield targets in 2019. And just to define downfield targets, deep passes, 20 plus yards down the field. The sort of immediate thought is, if you take away the volatility or the high variance that comes with 20 plus yard passing, that the interceptions will go down as well. But that's not always the case. Even if you take a large portion of, let's say, those 99 downfield targets, 20 plus yards down the field, and then repurpose them to backside of the backfield or tight ends closer to the line of scrimmage, if you're only focused on the 2019 season where Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions, you might be a little bit displeased to know that 25 of those 30 interceptions came within 19 yards of the line of scrimmage. So even if you reduce the high variance that comes with deep passing, you could still end up running into issues with turnovers, even close to the line of scrimmage. Now, we have to look at Jameis Winston as more than just the 2019 season. Before that, you saw 11 interceptions, and you saw a couple of seasons that were 14, 15 interceptions throughout the rest. Again, the Saints have had those seasons with Drew Brees, who even threw 22 interceptions in one season, and they can win despite that. But what does it take to do that, and what could help to make that happen, even if you are looking at trying to reduce those interceptions? Well, the run game. That's going to become a huge part of all of this, right? If you can build a lead and then lean on the run game, that's going to help a ton when it comes to any of those potential interception issues for Jameis Winston. If you look at the rushing yards total for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers between 2015 to 2019, Jameis Winston's 5 years with the team, you can see that in 2015, they had the fifth highest rushing yards total. But after that, from 2016 to 2019, they were 24th, 27th, 29th, and 24th again. Second lowest interception percentage of his career came in that 2015 season when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were fifth when it came to rushing yardage. And you can also see a pretty good correlation between how, when they were at the near bottom of the league when it came to rushing attempts, all but one of those years, you also saw them near the bottom when it came to total interceptions thrown as a team. So you improve the decision making, but you also need to improve the environment under which the decisions are being made by leaning on the run game, increasing efficiency over on the offensive side, and increasing the efficiency and performance over on the defensive side as well. Those are all keys to a successful Jameis Winston-led team. 19 of Jameis Winston's 30 interceptions in 2019 came when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were trailing. One last thing, Tampa Bay was 22nd when it came to time of possession when trailing in that season. So if you build a lead early, you maintain the run game, and you rebuild this defense, that is sort of the scenario that you need to put Jameis Winston in order to see a successful season. But I would even go a little bit further than that. If the Saints want to be contenders in 2021, it can't just be about the quarterback. You can't live and die by the quarterback. Whether it's Jameis or Taysom, the Saints are going to have to find a way to be productive from all areas of their team, which is very much what Sean Payton is always focused on anyway, in order to be successful. All right, y'all, coming up next, we have 2 segments worth of In Case You Missed It to get you caught up on everything having to deal with the New Orleans Saints over this last week. We're going to talk about players getting some shine. We're going to talk about coaches on their way right now this weekend to getting married. A lot of great stuff going on around the New Orleans Saints organization, including some updates on the Superdome renovation that you may be very interested in. So we'll have all that coming up for you and more with our In Case You Missed It segment as we continue with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, let me tell you about our friends over at BetOnline.ag. We'll look at a couple of lines that are up for the basketball games tonight. The 76ers are favored -3 after blowing a huge lead to the Atlanta Hawks. Can they even up the series? And the Jazz are going to be looking to force a Game 7 against the Clippers right now, favored -2 on BetOnline.ag. So if you want to get in on either of those games, get on the action a bit. Money line over-unders are there as well. as some prop bets that you can get in on. And that's just with the NBA. There's also the MLB in action tonight, WNBA over the course of the weekend. There's so much for you to get involved in. So go and check them out at betonline.ag. It's free to sign up. And when you put some money down to get started for your first deposit, don't forget to use the promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, so you can get that 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's promo code LOCKEDON to get 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit at betonline.ag. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, family, it's time now to dig in. It is, in case you missed it, 2 segments worth today because we have a ton. So here is everything that you need to know about a very busy week for the New Orleans Saints. Mini camps might have wrapped up a little bit early, but it was still a packed week for the New Orleans Saints. So in case you missed it, Sean Payton and Ryan Nielsen both getting married this weekend. Congratulations to the coaches. Sean Payton and Skyline Montgomery are getting married in Cabo later on today, actually on Friday. And then Ryan Nielsen and his partner, Brielle Chapman, want to make sure I get the names right, are getting married in New Orleans this weekend, according to Jeff Duncan of The Athletic. So shout out and congratulations to the coaches on their upcoming nuptials. Now we'll get to another one here. New Orleans becomes one of 2 teams to cross the NFL's 85% threshold for vaccinations, according to Albert Breer of Monday Morning Quarterback, Sports Illustrated. Basically, what this means is that those teams, and the other team, by the way, is the Miami Dolphins. Now, it should be no surprise that the Saints are one of the first to cross this threshold, right? Sean Payton had COVID. They've been very serious about it. They were the first team last year to say no offseason activities, come back ready for training camp, and still made the playoffs. So it should be no surprise that they're at the forefront of this. But with the vaccinations being in place for the New Orleans Saints and them crossing that 85% threshold, that's really good news because you might see some more relaxed protocols that the NFL and NFLPA have discussed, but haven't settled on just yet. But this could mean things like, there's the standard stuff that we'll talk about in just a moment, but it does mean things like the quarterback competition, any type of ancillary events like locker room parties, all of those things could potentially be coming back for the teams that are 85% or better when it comes to the vaccination rate of their player population or of their organizational population. So you could be seeing some fun stuff coming back for those teams. So good news for those of you that have asked about the quarterback competition. Maybe this helps to make sure that that can happen. Now, in case you missed it, on top of that 85% threshold, the NFL also released some details on vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals. I don't want to get too in detail with this because it's a lot, but basically the things you need to know is that there are incentives for players that are being vaccinated, which include social media marketing, all these other things that they can take part in that are no longer prohibited. Eating in common areas together, no travel restrictions, or at least more lax travel restrictions, things like that. But seemingly some punishments for those that aren't vaccinated, which is a little weird, right? Like nothing should be different for players that are not vaccinated this year than what was already happening last year, as far as I'm concerned, unless we start to see a rise in that player population of infections and cases. But at this point, it just seems a little weird to like deny them of marketing opportunities and not allow them to travel together, things like that. But, to each their own when it comes to this kind of a thing. And I know it's a sensitive topic, but it's something to talk about, right? Like, there's a reason why you're seeing, some teams that are well ahead of the curve when it comes to the 85% vaccination threshold because they don't want to be limited by what they're able to do as they get ready for what's supposed to be as normal as possible a 2021 NFL season. So just a couple of things there. You could check out Albert Breer on Twitter and you can see the rest of the detail around these. We also put up a piece over at Canal Street Chronicles as well that has a screenshot where you can gather all the details for what's different for vaccinated players as opposed to unvaccinated players if you're interested. In case you missed it, Jameis Winston and Traquan Smith back working together again after mini camps over on the West Coast. Several videos dropping, thanks to Nick Underhill as well as Luke Johnson, of Winston and Smith getting some practice in together over the course of this week. So the Saints did their mini camp, quote unquote, a little bit early. They did it the week before the rest of the NFL, who are just wrapping up this week. So basically, they did a bunch of other things at the Saints facility and outside of the facility. And part of that has been Jameis Winston and Traquan Smith yet again working together on some deep passes, looking to stretch the field, all these good things. So those two are really committed to working together over the course of this offseason. And honestly, you love to see it. I think that that's great. I think that that's awesome. And the two of them could be a pretty good dynamic duo in 2021 should Jameis Winston win that starting quarterback role. But I'm still looking forward to Traquan Smith's development, regardless of the quarterback that's under center. And finally, for this segment, in case you missed it, Drew Brees visited Chargers camp over the course of last week. Now, Sean Payton told us in media availability last week that we also have seen Drew Brees poke his head into the Saints facility whenever he's around. So he's not pretending that the Chargers are more important than the Saints or anything like that, but that is his first former team. So he went and spent some time talking to former New Orleans Saints quarterback coach Joe Lombardi, who's now the offensive coordinator with the Chargers, and spent some time talking to Justin Herbert as well, and had a lot of really great things to say about the second-year quarterback, 2020 Offensive Rookie of the Year as well. So just another example of Drew Brees not only being, a great quarterback himself, but spending some time with some young, great quarterbacks to potentially mentor them up. And it'd be a good relationship to have as a young quarterback in the NFL. Drew Brees. You see that with Russell Wilson as well. All right, y'all, coming up next, we're going to be talking about New Orleans Saints players getting some shine, a change in the medical staff for the New Orleans Saints as somebody heads back to LSU, and we're going to talk a little bit about those Superdome renovations as well as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And it is always my pleasure to be able to shout out our good friends over at Built Bar. You know what it is, sponsored by Built Bar. We are here and we love us a Built Bar. They come through with 9 incredible flavors that are always there on the website, but then they have rotating limited edition flavors and several other products that are irresistible as well. But I love me some Built Bars. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, gives you 17, 18 grams of protein, but only 4 or 5 grams of sugar. You can't get any better than that. I can't even compare this to eating something else. Like, I want to compare everything else that I enjoy eating to Built Bars now, because that has become the standard for me. So I love me some Built Bars. I know you guys love you some Built Bars as well. So head over to the website. If you haven't tried them already, this is the time to do it. It's summer. Get you some candy, but make sure that you're also taking care of yourself as well with these protein bars. You can get them in peanut butter brownie, mint chocolate, salted caramel, incredible flavors, cookies and cream as well. So go and check them out at builtbar.com and make sure you use the promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15. Use the numerals to get 15% off of your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at builtbar.com. Let's get it. Who Dat Nation, wrapping up today's episode with one more installment of In Case You Missed It. I told y'all it was a very busy week for the New Orleans Saints, so here's more of everything you need to know about the week in New Orleans. In case you missed it, Saints Director of Sports Medicine, Bo Lowry, is leaving to go back to LSU. This is actually pretty cool. So he's going to have the same title at LSU as what he had with the New Orleans Saints. He's going to end up moving into a spot where Jack Marucci is getting promoted. He's now going to be basically working on sports science as opposed to just sports medicine. So Bo Lowry ends up going from the director of sports medicine in New Orleans to the director of sports medicine in Baton Rouge. Lowry was originally with LSU from 2004 to 2010 before he joined the Saints. Has spent several seasons with New Orleans before getting promoted to that director of sports medicine position in 2017, and has been beloved by his colleagues as well as Saints players. So it's a bit of a loss for the New Orleans Saints. It'll be interesting to see where they find their next hire, if they promote within or if they go out and grab another director of sports medicine from elsewhere, or even help somebody rise up that might be ready. So LSU finally succeeds this time in hiring somebody away from the New Orleans Saints after the whole Ryan Nielsen situation and the way that panned out when they tried to hire Nielsen away to be the defensive coordinator. So you think maybe Coach O probably called Sean Payton a little bit ahead of time this time? I think that's probably about right, because that didn't work out for him last time. But Bo Lowry, congratulations heading over to LSU. In case you missed it, some Saints players continue to shine, even though they're not on the field at the moment. CJ Gardner-Johnson named to the NFL.com's top 10 coverage players list. So really great to see him get acknowledged, not just for trash talk, but for his play as well. So no big surprise here. CJ was a fantastic piece for the Saints defense in 2020, and he's looking forward to continuing to grow moving ahead to 2021. Saints offensive lineman Teron Armstead opening up a Scholars Education Center in Metairie. The Scholars of New Orleans basically is what they're calling it, and aiming to help students realize their full potential and overcome challenges as well, providing support to students across the city. So this is really, really cool. Teron Armstead continues to do incredible community work. He's one of the many New Orleans Saints players that remains invested in the community and has spent a lot of time, of course, in the community as well, being with the Saints for as long as he has. This is the third such location of Scholars Education Centers in the United States that has been opened. Started off in Toronto. There are 70 such venues in Canada as a whole. And I can't not talk about this. Alvin Kamara releases his own cereal. Yes, it happened. I'm being told, well, it's Chimera's King Crunch. The way it's been described to me is that it is a honey oat profile. So maybe honey oat clusters, maybe something like that. But it's available online and at select Rouses as well, according to WDSU. Fletcher Mackel doing a great job reporting on that piece of news. But you got to love it, right? Alvin Kamara just stays plugged into the food game. He's got the cereal. He's got he's got the apparel situation going on too, with all of the clothing apparel, the clothing line that he has. And then, of course, we'll never forget the good old Alvin Kamara Airheads as well. So great for him. I'm glad to see that continue. Those endorsements continue to flow in. And finally, in case you missed it, renovations at the Superdome are not only underway, but running on time. The $450,000 renovation plan is well underway. 12 new suites being added at field level, each of them to house around 24 people. 2 new stairwells in each corner, so 8 stairwells in each are all around the complex. More ADA compliance, which is great as well. All at the expense of 4,300 seats, unfortunately, that belong to season ticket holders. But these renovations are expected to be really great for the Superdome and allow them to remain a conducive and competitive stadium for the next 10 to 15 years. So it's a much needed update and upgrade as they plan to host Super Bowls and events over the course of that time. And all of this is expected to be completed for an event before the preseason game at home for the New Orleans Saints August 23rd against the Jacksonville Jaguars. For more, you can check out John Hendricks' piece over at Saints News Network. But real quick, since we have some time left, I want to get to a question from the Locked On Saints Facebook group. It is from Kelly Ludoveris, who asks, "Hey Ross, Friday question for you. Favorite player that has ever played in a Saints jersey, favorite current Saints player, and favorite player from another team." I'm going to be able to answer 2 out of 3 of those questions, but I'm going to give you an extra answer to make up for it. When it comes to favorite player to ever play in a Saints jersey, I have to go with Ricky Jackson, linebacker, big number 57, all-time leader in sacks, forced fumbles, all that good stuff. Incredible player, one of my absolute favorites to ever play the game. Unfortunately, didn't get to watch him very much because, 92 was, when I was like 2 years old. But I did, he's always been one of those players that whenever I get an opportunity to see what he did do, I'm always glued in, and he's one of my favorites. Favorite current player is the one that's a little bit tough to answer. I could point out some of the guys that do great community work and everything like that, but it's tough to answer because I cover the team, and so I like this entire team, so it's a little bit tough. So that's one I said I'm going to kind of like skirt you on a little bit, but I'm going to make it up to you, I promise. Favorite player from another team, Terry McLaurin, the wide receiver out of Washington, the Washington football team, Lamar Jackson, the quarterback, of course, out of Baltimore, and then Tyrann Mathieu, the safety out of Kansas City, former LSU Tiger as well. Plays the position that I played when I was playing football, played corner, and then moved over to safety, much like Tyrann Mathieu did. And I loved being a punt returner. So he was somebody that was just a ton of fun to watch and in his college days, and has been a ton of fun to watch in the NFL as well. So a big fan of Tyrann Mathieu. Those 3 guys I'll cut their games on whenever the Saints aren't playing to watch, or I'll go back and watch their games because I think they're just magnificent at what they do. But I'm going to make up not being able to answer the question about favorite current Saints player by giving you this, my favorite all-time player from another team. And I kind of wanted to go with a wide receiver here, like a Randy Moss. I even really liked a guy like Derek Mason, who I don't feel like gets enough shine. Torrey Holt was somebody that I loved a lot. Dre Bly. But I wanted to go over to, well, Dre Bly wasn't a wide receiver, but you get it. But I'm going to go back over the defensive side. I'm going to go back to safeties. I'm going to say Cam Chancellor. Cam Chancellor was one of my absolute favorite players to watch when he was playing in the NFL. Career too short, but I completely understand. And he's one of the reasons why I get so excited about the fact that Chris Richard is currently in New Orleans, because of what he was able to do with a guy like Cam Chancellor. Now, there's not another Cam Chancellor in the NFL right now, but he's somebody that when he was in the NFL and when he was playing, that I always loved to watch. All right, y'all. Now that you're done here, make sure you go and check out the Locked On Today podcast hosted by Peter Bukowski, wherever you get your podcasts. All the sports news that you need in less than 20 minutes. We're done here for the weekend, but we'll be back on Monday. Going to get your Monday mailbag questions in and get started with some of our off-season programming as we get into the month between minicamp and training camp. So we're going to start doing our position-by-position review, just like we did last year, where we're going to break down every player at each position. We'll get started with that on Monday, and we'll continue to go through all of the 2021 opponents on the schedule, talking about what's new, what's different, what's changed, and what the biggest questions are ahead of the matchup. And of course, we'll get you involved in all of it as we continue on with Locked On Saints here all throughout the off season, here with you still 5 days a week, not going to 3, 5 days a week here with Locked On Saints. I appreciate you as always for being here, for rating, reviewing, liking, subscribing, listening, watching. Everything you're doing to help grow this family means the absolute world to me, and I thank you for it. Make sure that you check me out on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how your mom and them. And trust Who Dat Nation. I'll holla at you.